Good people. Jason here with Green Country Agroforestry. Having a look at these bronze muscadine grapes. These are the males, and they are getting just about ripe enough to pick. Some of them are ripe, making that change in color from green to that shiny, somewhat metallic brownish color. You know, coming out here every morning to walk in the garden, you get to see some things that are just sort of like, hi, good morning, it's you again. This mantis is one of those things. Hang on a second. Now, this praying mantis here is one of those friends that I've been greeting every morning for about the past 3 days. It's not the only mantis out here, but it's the one that is always in the same place. Good morning to you. Somewhere back here in this corner, we're going to have an orb weaver with an almost perfect web. Wow. Really good job you did there. Of course, the mantis and the spider are busy trying to protect our grapes from the moths that will come along and lay their eggs. And the larvae that hatch out are these little worms, which will damage the fruit and sometimes make it come ripe a little too early. Sometimes you see the evidence, like, you know, that. So there's a little worm inside here. Occasionally I'll come along and find a grape with a little hole in it, which means that a bird has found the grape with a worm in it and picked the worm out. Let me see if I have another friend out here that we can say hello to this morning. Hello. How are you? Hi, little one. Well, it's been a challenge with all this heat lately, but we've managed to keep everything watered, so everything's staying alive. But you might notice that there's really not a whole lot of flowers available out there. So the question is, what do pollinators do during the time of year whenever there aren't a lot of flowers available for them to get nectar? Bees and the wasps, they still need nectar to feed. So what are they doing? Where are they getting their food? Let me show you this. Right over here we have a Quercus macrocarpa. That is a bur oak. Bur oak. Big leaves, big palmate leaves, hence macrocarpa. Carpa like the palm, and macro meaning big, large. Now if you have these trees, or if you have pecans, walnuts, other trees of this nature, you may notice that they get a shiny gloss on some of the leaves in the lower parts of the tree. Not necessarily the top of the tree, but down underneath you get this shiny stuff. And sometimes it becomes black and sooty. Well, the fact that it becomes black and sooty is a reason why you should not do what I'm getting ready to do, but since this is a fairly fresh deposit, we should be fairly safe. And what I'm going to do is we're going to I'm going to show you what I saw a bee doing yesterday. It was doing this. And whenever I did that, I discovered what the bee was doing. You see this shiny substance on the leaf there is actually honeydew. And where it comes from is the underside of leaves above it. Let's have a look. I don't know if you can see them or not, but right up on the underside of these leaves are tiny little mites. Looks like little mites living. There's a little tiny white speck there at the tip of my thumbnail next to the midrib of that leaf, and that little tiny white speck is a very, 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 very tiny little aphid. Alright. Now, mites and aphids are busy doing their thing. They're chomping away at the leaves and sucking the sap out of them. But they can't process all of that sap, and so they excrete a refined form of sugar. And that is what is producing this shiny gloss on these leaves, which is very sweet. It is, it's aphid pea, is what it is. Okay. All right, as a real quick aside, I found out that what's in that aphid pea is mostly glucose and fructose. You see, what came out of the tree in the first place was sucrose, or like refined sugar, and that's not great for bees. It can cause them digestive problems if they get too much of it. This is why you shouldn't feed too much sucrose. But glucose and fructose, no digestive issues for the bees. Now, if it stays there and it hardens, eventually it's going to wind up feeding fungus, and you'll get a black soot all over these leaves. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to help the bees out, because it's harder for them to get this. It's harder for them to get this honeydew off of the leaf whenever there isn't any dew, right? Good morning, birdie birdies. Oh my gosh, I've got an audience. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quick, just take my garden hose, turn it down to as low a spray as I can, put it on mist setting. And here, while it's still relatively early, now, not to worry, this moisture is not going to stick around long enough to turn into mold, but hopefully it will allow our bees and wasps an opportunity to get a little bit of hydration and a little bit of nutrition here during this time of year when there really aren't that many flowers. So there you go. Now you know how bees can make honey in the middle of the summer in a forest when there aren't any flowers blooming. If you found today's video informative or entertaining, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing.